Okay, let me knock that off. You know, when I'm on the treadmill here, sometimes when I listen to this thing, I had it in my phone for a little while, but I decided that it wasn't really necessary to pay for it. It's an app called Motiversity, which, by the way, right, if you're a Dom Famularo fan, the late great ambassador, and this is part 2 of the tribute to him that I'm creating. Dom, right, was like a motivation speaker. He wrote a book. You know, I don't remember the title of it, but it was really right about empowerment. I think that might have been in the title of the book. You know, I never read it. I was hoping Dom would have put it on tape or cassette because I don't read books. I usually listen to them on audio. Most things now are available online. Hopefully, maybe someday somebody will put that on audio because I'll be the first to either buy it or load it or get it. But anyway, part 2 of my tribute to the late great Dom Famularo, who they called the ambassador. What was the next story that I wanted to talk about? I seem to have forgotten. Oh, okay. The next story. You know, I wish I had become friends with Dom, and I wish I would have taken a lesson. I never really took a lesson, but there was one time I was hanging out at the Lawn Drum Center back when it was in Belmore, the original store. That was a really cool shop. It was a really long thing. Jerry, Ricky, and Dennis, they had a dream of creating this drum shop, you know, just strictly for drums. It's like an institution. They're still there now. They're just in a different location. They're in Hicksville now. But in any event, I was there for some business. I don't remember what the business was, but whatever it was, I was there. And Dom Wright was giving a lesson at that time. He gave a lot of lessons there. He taught there. And he said, hey, Jeff, how are you? And I said, hey, I see you teaching. It's great, man. You know, what are you working on with your students? He goes, why don't you come in and sit in a little bit on the lesson for a little while? You know, I said, well, is it okay with the student? You know, he checked with the student. And it was okay. And I sat. I don't think I stayed for the whole lesson. But here's what he was doing, though, which I was like really sort of blown away by. And it influenced my teaching. To this day, it influences my teaching. Now, I don't know, right, if he did this every lesson, of course. I know Dom had a book called It's Your Move. He definitely did a lot of stuff with the students, but for this particular lesson, the concept of the lesson was as Dom laid out a motif. It was like, I don't think it was any more than 2 beats, maybe 4. I really don't remember what it was, but it was a motif. Say, all right, let me just set up a hypothetical example. Say it was like Zibbidaboo, you know, the Bonham triplet, snare, small, 4, kick, Zibbidaboo. And he laid that out. It was something similar to that, but it wasn't quite that. And so he played that. And then he told the student, so I want you to spend the whole lesson creating different creative scenarios using that one motif. And that was, you know, so in other words, the first exercise was to put it in a rhythm. So the student kind of played a rhythm, and then I don't know exactly what he did, but, you know, eventually he put in that Bonham triplet. You know, maybe right at the end of the measure, maybe in the middle of the measure. It's really not important, but the idea was he played one measure rhythm and then another measure, and in that second measure, somewhere in there, he had to incorporate that diddle-diddle. There's a lot of ways you can do that. If this was an explanative, I could do that probably about 50 different ways. I'm a total brainstormer. I never stop thinking. I'm always putting ideas in different places. If you guys look on my more recent explanative, I'm always searching for different ways to do things. And that was a lesson. That was really cool. Eventually I left and thanked him, but I remembered that. So as I went on with my teaching career, like parallel paths, I started doing that with a lot of the motifs that I had written, because I wrote all these drum survey things. You know, the Carbon 16th, the Herders, the Bonham 3s. I wrote hundreds of studies. I'm really proud of a lot of that stuff. And I'm bringing that stuff back. Eventually, right, I'm going to revisit that and redo some of that stuff. But, so that was really, really cool. Next story. I remember when they had the tribute to Buddy Rich. And it was the first Buddy Rich Memorial Scholarship, I believe. I don't know if it was or it wasn't. But they had it at the Westbury Music Fair. And if you came, you had to donate a can of food for the hungry or the homeless. I don't really remember, but that was part of the agreement. And I think there was probably a fee. I really don't remember. But I remember Dom not only emceed the show, but he played the first song. Oh, actually, Buddy Rich's drummer played the first song. Buddy Rich had a rehearsal drummer, so there was a guy, right, that played that. I forget what song it was. But Dom played, I think it was Fantasy by Earth, Wind and Fire, but an arrangement like a Buddy Rich arrangement. It was smoking, and then he went into a solo. Unbelievable, and I have that on a CD, you know, and I'm probably one of the few guys that have that. You know, I snuck a tape machine into the performance, and I taped the mainly I didn't tape the whole thing. I just taped the drum solos of the different drummers that perform. So I have Wackel on there, I have Belson. You know, I never did anything with it. I just, you know, I was on cassette. So eventually, I put it on a CD. And by the way, that cassette is gone. But the CD, was saved. So somehow, I guess God wanted me to still have that. And it's 2 CDs. And, you know, if I run into you somewhere and you become friends with me and you want me to make you a copy of that, I can do that. Yeah, it's a really cool thing because I like to share the wealth and, you know, let people hear that. Al Miller was on it. A lot of people. But anyway, his solo, was cranking. I couldn't believe it. So Dom get to do that. Dom had this other technique, which is really, I think it was kind of funny. It was called I think they call it the galloping. And he had one hand up in the air, and, you know, he had one hand behind his back, and, they call it the rodeo. And the right hand, he was doing double bass, really fast double bass, but he wasn't playing double bass, he was using a double bass pedal. Dom never played on 2 bass drums, he did have the double bass pedal. It evolved his playing, he did some pretty incredible things there. So he was doing that with his right hand, really, really cool. Tony and I was talking about that. Tony was friends with Dom Famularo. Tony's a drummer that I know that teaches and was friends with him. He was known for that. Yeah, so he did that, And when he did that, the whole place went totally. Everybody went crazy. It was really, really cool. Finally, my last experience with Dom was Dom Famularo hosted the Drum Summit. That was probably about 12 years ago, along with Lou Garvey, by the way, who, with Dom and Lou Garvey, they hosted this thing at Sam Ash. It was a really, really cool event. And at that event, all drummers from Long Island were invited. It was really cool. Rick Corwin came, Jules Rodino, and it was like this big circle of guys. And then Dom kind of hosted it and went around and asked different people to demonstrate. I'll never forget it, There were a lot of guys there, and what happened was everybody got a chance to demonstrate except me and Rick Corwin. Rick, he didn't mind, but I was a little, disappointed, And I'll never forget it, at the diner, Peter Greco was there too. At the diner, we all went to the diner after. Dom comes over to me and goes, "Listen, I'm sorry, don't worry, the next time we do the Drum Summit, you'll be the first to perform." And I said, "Nah," "that's okay, Dom, it was all good fun." I did get to speak a little bit at the Drum Summit. I think that's on YouTube. So that was cool. finally, the last thing that I want to talk about is no matter what, Dom Wright was supportive of everybody. I mean, anybody right that would go over to him, that would talk to him, he would always take the time, you know, to stop and talk with you. And it's like really, really cool. The last thing that I want to say in closing in my tribute, well, when I did the drum summit solo with Sam Ash, it's on YouTube. It's Jeff Findyke Drum Summit Solo, Sam Ash. The introduction that Dom gave me was really good. You guys could listen to it, but you know what he said to write. We got characters on Long Island. My drum TV show was really, really big at that time, and now I'm bringing it back. But he goes away. We have some characters on Long Island, right? Liberty DeVito. No, he goes. We have some characters. Liberty DeVito, Buddy Rich, and Jeff Findyke. Right? He used my name in the same sentence as Liberty and Buddy Rich, and you can't ask for anything cooler than that. You know, he used my name, right, and their name in the same sentence. And they said, they don't come right any cooler than that, or whatever. And he introduced me, and I played my solo, and I did an introduction tribute to Gary Carnevale on that. And you guys can see it, but I always, you know, appreciate Dom Wright for that real cool introduction. He made me look good, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate Dom. And last thing, when they had the memorial service, it was like a service. I was out on Long Island. Karen Fetter and I went. She picked me up, and you know, there weren't a lot of people that I knew there, but I didn't. I met Joe Bergamini there. I got to see Dom's sons, you know, and give my condolences. You know, the last time I saw Dom's sons, they were small. You know, they were youngsters. You know, maybe they were 10, 11 years old, and now, right, they were these really, really charming adults. You know, and so I got to tell them, and I got to, you know, meet his wife again. His wife knew me, but I didn't really remember her. And then, yeah, and so they were doing like tributes. People were coming up and talking about their experiences with Dom. And I think somebody might have filmed it, I don't know. But I wasn't sure, right, if I should get up, because, you know, I wasn't really close with Dom. But I figured, you know, what the heck, let me get up and say something. So I got up, and I didn't say much. I just said right that, you know, my experiences with Dom were always cool. He was always nice to me, and he always took the time to talk to me. And I told the story right about how I used to call him in the middle of the night, and he told me, right, you know, it's okay that you call, but please call me a little early. And everybody kind of chuckled. It was kind of fun. It was all in good fun. And the last thing, right, that I said was, as Dom Famularo always said something oh yeah, I also said about that I stole a lot of things from Dom, which I did. I don't mean his property. I mean a couple of his ideas. And then, right, I'll finish with that in a second. But so then the last thing that I said that Dom said was, always stay a student. And, you know, I always remember that, right? Because if you stay a student and you don't think you know too much, you're perfect. You know, one thing, right, I don't like, right, is guys, right, that are know-it-alls. You know what I mean? People, right, that think they know everything. You know, and they'll let you know about it too. You know, and guys like that, right, need to be corrected, because we don't know anything really. You know, and we're all in this together, like Steve Gadd said. And so that was that. And the last thing, there's two things, right, that I took from Dom. One, I never accomplished what he could do technically, so I certainly didn't steal that. But because I'm more of like a big groove player, Dom was more of an impressionist. When he soloed, he almost created like symphonies. He moved around a lot. He could groove, but he moved around a lot. He would go from one thing to another thing to another thing very rapidly, almost like he was composing like a rhythmical symphony. But there were two things, right, that he did that I incorporated into my playing. Danny did also too, I believe. And I think Stephen Chamberlain did that, if that's the name right, because he studied with Dom. One, right, was he did this thing with the cymbal where he hit it, and with his hand he cupped it, and he was able to get like a wah-wah. It's really cool. If you guys ever run into me over at somewhere and you want me to show you, I'll show you how it works. You kind of hit the cymbal, and with your hand, you couple your hand, you get the bell. You have to do it on the bell of the cymbal. It's like a wah-wah effect. And the other thing was he used to hit his cymbals right, like, sort of like sideways. I do that sort of sideways, and just hit right the very edge of the cymbal, ding ding, as part of right of his solo. And yeah, so those were the two things right that I took from him. You know, I took a lot of things from a lot of people, but those are the two things that I took from him. And, you know, if you ever come, you know, if you ever want me to show you, I could show it to you. And I varied it, of course, because, you know, I play in my own style, and that's what I think you guys should do too. So, anyway, that's my tribute to Dom Famularo, and you know, I really miss him. You know, I'm sure, right, you know, if he was still here, right, I'd probably be calling him saying, "Hey, Dom, you know, I kind of made it back, you know, because I wasn't around for a little while. You guys know that." And I'm sure he would have really been proud of me, right, that I came back. I didn't even know, right, if I should, you know, but I did. And I'm sure he's looking down on me going, "Good work, Jeff." So I hope that you guys like my two tributes to Dom Famularo, and well, you know, what could you say? Stay a student, you know, and you're cool. Thanks.